Welcome back to Too Much Future, the show where we play through the Fallout games and talk about them. We're playing Fallout 4. This is episode 2 of that. I am Cameron, and with me, as always, is Michael.
Hi.
Michael, what are we doing in this episode? Last time, we started Fallout 4. We talked a little bit about it. Warden never changed, all that kind of stuff. We discovered dog meat and Sanctuary, the little town we live in. Sanctuary Hills, I think is what it's called. And we talked to our little friendly robot, Cogsworth? I think I said it wrong.
Cogsworth is the name of the little talking clock played by David Ogden Stiers in Beauty and the Beast.
The better robot.
Yeah.
Were all of those little things, were they robots?
Yeah, sure. Let's say, yeah, all of the things in Beauty and the Beast were robots.
What determines if they're a robot or not?
They were turned into robots by magic.
But they were like is the difference between them being robots or not that they were like possessed by Geist or some shit? We got to like use like German terminology to determine the difference between a robot and a fantasy creature.
Well, I mean, the problem is, Beauty and the Beast takes place in France, probably like a century before people start talking about Geist.
Okay.
I know that's why people come to this channel and this show specifically, is for us to drop the deep Disney lore.
Yep. That's actually our other show, Disney Lore. Where we just do like the most like 2008 on the internet, well, if this had really happened, then this would have happened.
Thinking through the mechanics of Beauty and the Beast as if every single person in the castle was a robot.
Did you know? Look, now that we're just like shooting the shit at the beginning of this episode for fun. Did you know that there are like massively viral YouTube accounts that just do like still today in the year 2022, they are still producing content that's like, what if first-person shooters were real?
Oh yeah,
that's wild to me. I thought we were done with that. I thought that was over.
I think that's rich ground for a joke. I mean, considering how often people retweet my my video about the dragon at Fort Fuck shit.
Right.
Which was like made several years after the prime of Skyrim, and yet nevertheless has its own sort of dedicated following.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that makes sense, I guess. But we're talking about Fallout 4. You got to make a little viral video about Fallout 4.
Yeah.
War never changed.
Well, I've got all this Boston outside, so maybe I'll come up with something.
You got all this Beantown out there?
Mm-hmm.
Do people call it that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, okay. I don't know. Not many people that I've met here, but yes.
You're going to make us a little video where you go around town and talk about all the Fallout 4 things that happened at various locations?
I could, actually. I considered that.
That'd be fun.
One of the things that is actually a barrier to it is that, unsurprisingly, these game world maps really condense the size of things. In this particular episode, when I accidentally walked from, like, Concord to, like, North Cambridge, I was like, I could not do this in real life. That's not a situation I would end up with. I would not accidentally walk from Concord to North Cambridge.
Yeah, I wonder what the scale is. It's got to be like a quarter, maybe a third.
Something like that, yeah.
Assassin's Creed is a third. So, from that we can measure.
Yeah.
I saw a YouTube video the other day where someone was like, we have to do some trigonometry on like a practical problem outside. And then they just took two sticks and measured distance with two sticks, which is, you don't need that's not trigonometry. That's just measuring with sticks, which people have done for truly forever. Since we had the notion of measurement.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about using other video games to measure things. Like, oh, let's get some empirical data going on. It takes 2.5 hours to walk across an Assassin's Creed map and 3 to walk across Fallout 4. So Fallout 4 is a quarter or whatever, right? And you're like, all right, buddy. Let's not get too complicated here, unlike we're doing here. So we went to, at the end of last episode, Codsworth said, hey, buddy, go to Concord. See if you can find somebody to love. Wouldn't you want somebody to love? You better find somebody to love.
Mm-hmm. Now that your spouse is dead.
Now your spouse is dead. No, you got to look for Sean, remember? So what happened is you got cryogenically frozen. You woke up for a minute. Baby got stolen. Thing close up again. You go back to sleep. You wake up. And now you look for Baby.
Uh-huh.
We look for Baby. And some people threw down a little gun to you. They were being attacked by raiders. And what'd you do after that?
Well, I went into the building where the people are, and there's a whole bunch of raiders in there still, and I shot all those raiders, and then I met the people upstairs.
Tell me about the combat, right? Because, like, this is really the first moment where combat stuff is happening. There's a little bit of combat design here. Let's talk about what's going on. I think it's called the Museum of Freedom. Let's talk a little bit what's going on there, a little bit about the combat here. You know, I don't know. Tell me what's up.
Eleanor is traditionally a kind of a VATS character, so I'm using lots of VATS. VATS is different now in that when you go into it, it doesn't freeze everything, sort of permanently, as if you were. I think the idea in Fallout 3 was almost like you're stepping back into the old turn-based combat from the previous Fallout games, and we've dispensed with that notion. Now it just sort of slows down time, so if you're not making quick decisions in VATS, then the enemies are still moving, right? If they're rushing you, they will still be coming towards you, and if you take too long to decide, they will come up and they will very slowly start, beating the crap out of you or what have you. Which is, I guess, interesting. I don't know. It does make VATS feel more lively, I guess, but also, like, the entire point of VATS for me was to make it feel unlively, so,
Well, so this game is not built for melee characters.
I was wondering about that for you, yeah.
No game has been so hostile since Fallout 1. So hostile to the notion of a melee character, which is kind of fascinating and actually makes it pretty tactically difficult. I am spending a lot, not necessarily here, but certainly later on in this episode when we talk about some other stuff that we did. A lot of time, like, aggroing enemies and, like, running behind a corner. And waiting for them to show up, and then I have to, like, come out and straight up Michael Myers them, right? It's like, like with a knife, and then it's like dodging back around the corner and disappearing. I get the sense that melee is designed in this game to be a facilitator of stealth combat. So like because it actually tells you that the infinite tutorials in the top left of the screen.
Yeah.
They are blocking my ability to access the Pip-Boy constantly, to like click the buttons in it. It's awful. I can't see shit, and they're constantly appearing. But yeah, the only time melee combat's really showed up is in two ways to be like in those tutorials. One is when you're stealth, you can use melee combat to like attack people quietly. Mm-hmm. And the other one is like you can hit on the keyboard, you can hit like the Alt button to do a melee attack with a weapon,
right.
Like a gun in your hand, which I don't think has ever been in any of these games before. But
no, you can get like bayonets on guns now. So,
right.
Yeah, like it's more of a Halo type thing. Someone gets close quarters and you like bash them in the face with your gun barrel.
Yeah, and I'm also playing in third person, so it changes all of this stuff. The angles have never been quite right. For these, lining up shots and things like that in third person versus first person, there's always been this like little differential. Here it kind of maintains that, but there are a huge number of character animations. This game was designed that if you wanted to play in third person, it wouldn't look weird. It would look like an RPG. So that's pretty fascinating too.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I noticed in like VATS, for instance, when the camera kind of pops into the third person, rather than having Lucky Nell's signature like dead-eyed, expressionless stare as she like lifts up the gun and fires, Eleanor here, like you see her like close one eye and like squint to aim before she pulls the trigger and that sort of thing, which I thought was a nice touch.
Yeah, no, it's an impressive like animation set, but yeah, kind of going in here and dodging in and out and like really using the environment for our advantage. And I will say, because the environment is much more detailed and there's a lot more objects in the world, partially because of what do you call it? The settlement system. I was trying to think of the term. There's maybe a little bit more of an intricate like stuff in the world system and placement system. But it does mean that like melee combat becomes a little bit more complicated sometimes because they have guns and I don't. Right, so I'm like really having to move and maneuver around. But other times, right, I get to use that to my advantage to like get them to come through a little corridor or something. So. Also, a lot more use of cover. It seems like the AI is a lot more dynamic. They seem to have a little bit more thoughts going on about how to interact with the player and how to flank and stuff like that. So that's been pretty interesting to deal with. Anything about the Museum of Freedom that stuck out to you here?
Not particularly. There's a bit where you're kind of like going through a room that seems like it's kind of I thought it was going to be a bit more maybe Bioshocky than it turned out to be, but it's like, here's the history of America, like 1776, World War II, the current war that we're fighting. And it's like some, nice little bits of set dressing, but it doesn't do a lot with it. Oh, one other note in terms of combat, and I didn't really reckon this until you talked about how hard it was for you as a melee character. I have so much damn ammo now, like more ammo than I have ever had at the beginning of a Fallout game. And there's something interesting going on here where like the raiders are using these things called pipe guns, which are clearly like homemade guns, right? All previous Fallout game or most previous Fallout games were kind of like about having scrounged up pre-war guns that had been refurbished or that were still working. And here people are actually like building guns out of pipes and screws and pieces of wood. And so this means that the raiders that I'm killing all have the same ammo type as me, and I just have so much ammo. I don't feel like I'm having to conserve it in a way that I did in all previous Fallout games.
Yeah, there's something quite interesting about how they dug back into the history, because pipe guns are in Fallout 2.
Oh, that's right, aren't they?
It's one of the first guns you can get in Fallout 2, and I don't think they really show up again. It's not like there's a bunch of them, but they're the dominant form of gun here at the beginning,
right?
As exactly you're saying, Fallout 3, like you run out and like everyone has an AK-47 immediately, right?
Yes.
Or like a 10mm pistol or whatever. And so it is interesting to see them kind of cherry pick this one thing for reasons that are kind of a big question mark. In some ways, it feels like, well, the Boston area didn't have that many guns. East Coast liberals don't have enough guns.
Oh, all of our gun control laws out here.
Oh, a person would have to simply make a ghost gun out of a pipe. It is interesting they didn't make. There's no 3D printing in the Fallout universe.
Yeah, don't worry, they'll retcon that in somehow.
Oh yeah, let's get that in. I mean, it does, that would be a little bit easier. But yeah, I guess the thing to say here too, even though I don't really dig into it in this episode, and you probably don't either, is that you were talking about the bayonet and stuff like that. There is weapon and armor customization in this game in the way that there was light customization in New Vegas. And we never really played with that, or I didn't.
No, that's not I don't tend to go for those types of systems in games.
Well, in that game, it was like a fun thing you could do. It's like a load-bearing system in this game. Like not every, but the vast majority of weapons that you pick up, they have some sort of mods associated with them. There's some really robust stuff you can do. Every item has a bunch of different things you can apply to it, and I think you can learn more later on too. And it ties into a whole big loot system. We'll talk about that in a minute, but. Just notable that that's there in the game, and I don't know how often it's going to be coming up in the show because that's not how we talk about these games, but it is a thing that you can do and fiddle around with in the background. You met these people, huh?
Yep, and everything got super confusing really quick because, as I said, I'm trying to play this a little hostile. This is where the problems with the dialogue system really come to the fore for me. As someone who, historically with these games has been interested in talking to people and sort of working through dialogue trees, having all of these lines fully voiced also means that we've reduced the dialogue interaction system to something more like Mass Effect, more like Dragon Age 2, where, because I play with a controller, when time comes for me to chime in on something, I just have my 4 little, letter buttons, and I pick to the right, mean answer / in conversation, left, probably nicer answer, sometimes sarcasm, right? It's just like you don't see what you're going to say. You get like the 1-word description of what that thing will be. Sometimes it's a nice thing, sometimes it's a sarcastic thing. Up is like usually asking for more information, and down is something else. Anyway, it's greatly simplified is the point. And it means that you can't really role play through dialogue in the way that you could in previous games, which means that when I talk to these people, I'm like, also, this is the other thing, all of these people talk so slow. There's like this guy named Preston Garvey. He's all right, but like everyone else in this room is like talking so slow, and I'm trying to figure out which button I can hit to like skip to the end of their dialogue so I can just read it through the subtitles. And I end up like skipping a whole, like I hit the button too close to the end, and that makes me choose a dialogue option that like jumps me forward in the conversation. There's also this glitch that I encounter where Preston Garvey, he says he's trying to tell me something about like what he wants me or needs me to do. But his subtitle hangs over the bottom of the screen, and no one else gets any subtitles for the rest of the conversation. So then
the same thing happened.
Yeah.
Not with Preston Garvey, but with one of the other characters I was talking to, but same deal. Same thing happened.
Right. So, like, I talk to these people, and then the conversation ends, and I don't know really who any of them are, what they're doing, or what exactly it is they want me to do, but luckily my Pip-Boy was listening and is like, hey, you need to go up to the roof and find some power armor. Also, you need to go into the basement and find, like, a core, like a power core for the power armor, but I already found that when I was, like, clearing out the museum. Like, I went into the basement, and I was like, oh, here's a door that I can unlock. I unlocked it, and then there was a thing in there, like this glowing thing, and I was like, I'm going to take this because this is going to be important, and I am right.
It was true. It was important.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big deal. I don't. What's your vibe on Preston Garvey? Because he's like a dude we're going to hang out with for a minute.
I don't know. Like literally, I don't know who he is or what he's doing. Like that dialogue is gone. Like, he's just some dude who immediately demanded help from me, and I am, for some reason, giving it to him.
So, I mean, I guess something that's interesting here is that it is, what's the best way of putting this? You didn't get much less than you kind of get. It's weirdly enough, I think that there is so much concern. I think, one, it's budgetary, right? Like,
yeah,
we got to get this information communicated quickly, and these lines are voiced, so we have to make sure it's very clear. So there's that. So there's no kind of talking around the subject. There's no kind of artifice involved. There's very little character voice. I mean, he's just not much of a character, weirdly enough, for being someone who is like so notable and so memeable.
Mm-hmm.
Preston Garvey's got his own thing going on. So yeah, it's a really weird thing that like this is the first emanation of a major faction in the game, and you're just like, hey, can you help me?
Like, see, I know that this guy is part of a faction because of like having double checked some wikis to see if I was missing anything, but like based on what I played through, I didn't know I didn't know that there was a faction happening here until long after the point that we're talking about. Like, until we had literally gone to a different town and this guy said something.
Damn. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
You go up to the roof. We'll talk more about Preston Garvey in a minute and the rest of this ragtag group of people like Mama Murphy.
Oh, yeah, I talked to her, and she's like, I see the future. Something's coming. Ooh, orange eyes. And I'm like, oh, great, I'm going to fight a Deathclaw.
She's a weird character that I think you probably got opinions on, but we can talk about this ragtag team in a minute because you go up to you get the little power thing. You go up to the roof, and we are being introduced to like one of the key mechanics of the game, which is like,
oh, that's disappointing to hear.
Oh yeah, oh no, this is like a part, like this is the selling point of the game.
Jesus Christ,
you're a power armor person, and you can pilot this little robot around. Now might have changed since launch. There are going to be some sections of the game where the only thing we can do is use this like power armor thing and like micromanage this little goofy system. I actually really hate it.
I hate it so much.
Yeah, it's not the majority of the game. I would say it's like 5%, but it's a 5% that I do remember from reviewing the game that I did not enjoy. But yeah, so you get up there and I do like getting in it. It looks cool when you get in it, don't you think?
Yeah, that looks nice. And then doing literally anything else at all in it is absolute torture.
You don't like clonking around?
I hate it. Like
it's so unsmooth compared to the other ones.
Yeah,
compared to the previous two Fallout games.
And I understand, right? I am not just like, well, this is bad, and I don't like the game because I know we're going to get a million comments talking.
Wait, was that the Mad Hatter himself?
Yeah, it was. He was here to tell us about how much he hates the power armor mechanic in Fallout 4.
I'm from a zany world, and I don't even think this makes sense.
It's my unapocalypse. It looks cool, and I understand. Like this was a moment where I was like, this is a big swing. Right? They like
it is a big swing.
Right? They sat down, they were like, what can we do to kind of make Fallout feel different, to sort of maybe spice it up or to add something interesting to the kind of gameplay template that we've already established. And I'm like, that's cool, right? There's like clearly there are many places in this game where these conversations have happened.
You gotta sell the fantasy, right? Like,
right.
You're a powerful, cool guy in the post-apocalypse.
Right. I get that. It is just so much not at all what I am interested in out of these games. Like, I don't think power armor is cool. I don't have, like, I don't really use it in the other games if I can help it. And I don't want to have to use it.
And many images of Lucky Nell in power armor. Got you dozens of pictures of various Nells and Eleanors in power armor.
Well, it's just like once you get to the end of the game and it's just like, oh yeah, this has the highest like damage resistance or whatever. Like that's as much as I really want to engage with power armor. Right. I don't want it to be like this weird fiddly bit where it has its own like power system that I immediately like run down to 0 and then like I like try to take it off. So you get into this power armor, you fight some raiders, a Deathclaw shows up. We'll talk through that in a bit more detail probably. But after a certain point, I was just like, fuck this. And so then I like tried to remove my power armor, but it turns out that like your power armor is like this weird little armature that you're wearing, and then you can customize what is on top of that power armor. So all I did actually was just take off all the stuff that was on top of the power armor armature. And I had to like press a whole bunch of buttons to figure out how to get out of the damn exoskeleton. And then I left it on the roof of a building here, and I haven't touched it since.
Well, buddy, you better go back and get that thing. Because there's a docking station for it, of course.
I know.
And you got to store it there. Otherwise, it's gonna be annoying. So, I mean, you get up there. You get to the vertibird. You power this bad boy up. You jump in it. And look, you're telling me it's not cool to jump off the roof and like hit the ground like you're the Incredible Hulk? You're telling me that's not cool?
I didn't do that. I walked through the doors. I didn't know if I jumped off the roof if it would kill me.
No, it doesn't. It's rad. You like hit the ground and you like crouch like a superhero, like a Superman. And then you like whip that minigun out. And then to me, it becomes goofy. Mm-hmm. It becomes something that the Mad Hatter would do. Yeah. Because I don't like this. I don't like the idea that the fantasy of Fallout is being funneled into. I find this more egregious than the Fallout 76 nuclear weapon stuff. Honestly, like in retrospect, thinking about Fallout, much more intensely than I had when Fallout 76 came out. In terms of like what interrupts the basic, if there's a core, I guess what I'm saying, if there's a core to Fallout, I think at a time, and we've talked about this on the show a million times, and even I fell into this trap at one point, right? Like, there's a belief that we have that like nukes and nuclear weapons were at some point sacred, and then that changed.
Mm-hmm.
That's wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like the games have already had a fairly loosey goosey relationship to like the nightmare power of nuclear weapons, right?
See the end of Lucky Nell's run on Lonesome Road.
Right. Or any of the stuff before that too, right? I mean, Tenpenny Tower, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And even the kind of goofy way that's treated in Fallout 1 and 2. So there's never been a sacredness of that in these games, even though I think we hold on to that for some reason. There has been a treatment of the wasteland itself and of the player character, which is that you emerge into this world, and it is a world that is dangerous, right? Like, you come out of the vaults in any of these games. Fallout 1 and 2, you come out of the vaults in, like, good luck, buddy, right? Like, you need to go kill iguanas for 20 hours.
Yes.
Before you can do anything else. Fallout 3, you come out of that vault, right? And you got to go to that grocery store, and you got to stealth around, and you got to be careful because, like, enemies with guns will hurt you. And you can get over that pretty quickly, right? But those first couple hours, they're a little bit tighter than you might think. And, I mean, New Vegas, right? You come out and they're like, hey, there's big-ass evil monsters between you and here. You're going to have to take the long way around to avoid those big-ass evil monsters. You know, the game is designed in such a way that it makes you feel weak and vulnerable at the beginning. And this game inverts all of that immediately by saying, hey, have you thought about becoming the most badass person on the planet immediately? Right. And you're a superhero. And we're going to throw in front of you the most badass monster, a deadly monster, a monster that can like 1 and 2 shot you in the other games if you meet it too early, right?
Yeah.
We're going to throw it in front of you, and you're going to fight it in this like E3 trailer ass moment of world domination, right? Of gameplay domination with a minigun. And then you can go on and play the game, whatever, but like, here's the stakes. You can become a badass and mow things down. And like, that to me is it's the biggest tonal change that's been in the entire series so far.
Like, power armor, I like, not to sound like too crotchety here. Like, I'm
crotchety. Is this crotchety, Mike?
Crotchety, Mike. Power armor used to be a thing that you earned. But I mean that I don't have that much of actual emotional investment in here. I'm talking about kind of a design philosophy. Power armor used to be a thing you had to work up to.
Yeah.
And so getting it here, like, immediately outside the gates of Tutorial City is a huge shift in what Fallout feels like and what it is.
I mean, this is still Tutorial City. This is in Tutorial City.
Right.
I mean,
that's
ultimately,
true.
right?
We have to leave Tutorial City to then immediately go back to Tutorial City.
I know. Gosh, we're still doing tutorial stuff. But anyway, not to belabor it too much, but it really is to me like a break point of like what's going on in the franchise. And I did not realize, because I knew this happened. I remember this from playing the game before, but I didn't. Maybe it didn't hit me as hard before or something. I don't know. Like, in the context of the show, it really hits way differently, just because of what you do. But you save Preston Garvey. You save Sturgis, who is his like buddy here.
Yeah.
His like mechanic guy. There's Mama Murphy, who is like the seer who does jet. This is a cool character idea, by the way. She's like an old lady who has the sight.
This feels very like Fallout 1, Fallout 2.
Very Fallout 1, Fallout 2, and she's got to do jet to do it. I mean, this is what Hakunen was his name. This is basically him, right? He had to like do dream powder or whatever it was, and he would get high as hell, and then he would like communicate to you over the spirit waves or whatever, right? Like,
right.
It actually worked. I guess he was like highlighting psychic powers or some shit. Who knows? Sending you visions, but it's the same deal, right?
Right.
As that guy. And then like a couple who are like Negative Nancy and Hateful Thomas.
Yes.
And that they like hate everything that's going on, because we learned from Preston Garvey that like a year ago, this squad that he was a part of was like 60 people. And over the course of trying to find somewhere to live, they've gone from place to place, and they've slowly but surely been winnowed down to just 5. And they're looking for a place called, guess what it's called? It's called Sanctuary.
Whoa.
And you can be like, hey, I live there.
That's the other thing that's really weird about all of this, right? Is like, you are a pre-war person who just got out of the vault. I'm a lawyer, quite specifically. And I'm just like immediately this badass rolling around with guns and power armor. And I don't ask a lot of questions about the nuclear apocalypse. I don't know.
No, you just kind of roll with it, right?
Yeah.
And then there's this weird tension, right, of the protagonization through narrative means of like, hey, you got this backstory, war never changes, this is a first-person monologue, blah, 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 blah. And then, like, yeah, forget all that shit, right? We're in Skyrim City. You can be whoever you want. You have basically no social connections. You have fewer social relations in this game than I think any of the other ones.
Yeah.
Other than Fallout 1, I guess.
Yeah.
Because even in Fallout New Vegas, it's like, hey, you're a courier. We know what those are. Y'all are running around all the time. Hey, were you, oh yeah, platinum chip, blah, blah, blah. You were carrying all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
We don't really get any of that.
Yeah.
Fallout 3 is like, oh yeah, we know your dad. You go to the first town and everyone's like, yeah, we know your dad. He's running around all the time. He came through here. I met him again. I saw you when you were a baby. You know, remember what Moriarty and his long discussion of you as a baby?
Yeah.
None of that here, right? Because it can't. It's interesting to think about this game kind of revising some stuff to make narrative maybe a little bit more front-loaded at the beginning, but then like tanking it all.
Yeah.
To kind of somehow actually more blank slate you than some of the other stuff. But anyway, they say, hey, we're going to Sanctuary, and you say, I live there. And they say, we want to live there, and you say, you can live there too. And then we did a couple additional missions here, because that's the end of When Freedom Calls, right? Or finishing this up is the end of When Freedom Calls. Do you want to talk about? Hold on, let me figure out the name of these things. You want to talk about the first step, or you want to talk about Sanctuary first?
Let's talk about the first step.
Okay, tell me about it.
On like as I'm going into Sanctuary, this is when I have this conversation with Preston Garvey, and this is the point where I realize like I can't asshole my way through dialogue options here. If I'm going to have anything to talk about or have any context really for what's happening. So
and also, sorry, I want to say a thing really quickly, because maybe there could be people listening to this who have never listened to any of the show before. Eleanor, broadly, because you know what, I think we forgot to even say who we're playing.
Well, you mentioned Tonk and I mentioned Eleanor, but we didn't really contextualize them, I guess.
No, we didn't. What a thing to miss and only realize 30 minutes into episode 2.
Yeah.
I play Tonk, who is a melee-focused character. You play Eleanor, who is a guns-focused character. Tonk is good at explosives and good at punching stuff, and generally nice. Eleanor is good at shooting things and being aware of the world and being kind of rude to everybody.
Yeah. Eleanor will be sneaky and snide.
Now, the thing that's notable about the other games is that you can be snide. And that's like a viable path.
Right.
To be a little bit rude. But in this game, it sounds like being a little bit rude is basically, I don't want to have this conversation anymore, just let me play the game.
Yeah, that is really because you have these 4 dialogue options, and the snide one, more often than not, is the one that is just like, get me out of this dialogue tree, I want to get back to running around shooting things. So,
tell me how it is.
I'm talking with Preston Garvey, and he gives me, so he's part of this faction called the Minutemen. Who are these people? Where do they come from? I can't really ask him those things, and I don't. He just sort of talks about how they used to be some kind of force in the Commonwealth, which is the area that we're in, you know, the Boston and environs wasteland. They had some sort of power base. They were headquartered in Quincy, which is, I'm interested in seeing that because Quincy is, I used to live there. That's the place in this game map where I have lived. And it's also one of the things that clues you in that in the 200 years since the nuclear apocalypse, the Boston accent has disappeared because people aren't saying Quincy, they're saying Quincy. You know, like you would say if you were from any other part of the country, but it's a thing that I got some shit for. Anyway, I am like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I have no context for this, but he's like, can you help us rebuild? And I really don't want to do this because I don't know what this faction is or what it stands for. But nevertheless, if this quest is going to progress forward, I have to sort of agree. Like, I don't have to like explicitly agree, but he like explains to me there are some like settlements out in the wasteland where maybe we can like help people. And if we help them, then they'll be inclined to like align themselves with us, with the Minutemen, and we can like start rebuilding the power.
Yeah, now why would you want to start the Minutemen again?
Who the hell knows?
I mean, that's the kind of interesting thing about it, right? Is that we've talked before about in Fallout 3 the kind of fantasification of Fallout in that game, right? You know, like dungeons and raiders are a bunch of orcs and goblins and all that kind of stuff. And this to me is like 100%. The Minutemen is just it's the massification of the fantasy impulse, right? It's like, all right, we need a bunch of paladins or some shit running around. Actually, paladins are going to be in the game too, so I can't even do that. We need like a good warrior group. I don't even know what this is, right? Like the Knights of the Round Table, I guess. We need them. How do we do that? Fuck it. Make it Minutemen, whatever. Who cares? Right.
It's like, oh, obviously there's like some American Revolutionary War thing going on here. Ooh, whatever. You know, New Vegas, like, lays out for you, here is the political situation that you are stepping into, right? In broad strokes. So you have at least some idea of what's going on. But here it's like, I stumbled into the world fresh as a newborn babe. Also, everyone is like talking to me about my my missing son, which I have never mentioned in any of my dialogue options. So, you know, like allegorically in terms of like the game, we can understand that some information is being communicated among characters in like scenes that don't quote unquote happen on screen, whatever. But it's just funny for everyone to suddenly start talking about my family that I have never mentioned in any dialogue options. There's just the Minutemen out there. He wants to rebuild the Minutemen. Okay, sure. He tells me to go to this settlement that is called like Oberlin Station or something. Yeah. And it's to the south, like we're up in sort of the northwest. It's to the south, closer toward the city. I also talked to Mama Murphy at one point here, and she told me like she had a vision of where I should go next to look for my son. But we didn't do that quest. But she said go to Diamond City. Diamond City is a place that exists. We'll go there.
Right. We'll do that next episode.
Yeah. So in the meantime, I walk down to Oberlin Station. What's interesting here is I try to see how this game is going to treat me if I stay off the roads, because one of the things that was happening in New Vegas is that you really did have to kind of follow the paths of the old roads in order to get to places, because that was how you could like find your that was how you could find your way through the parts where they had put in like enemies that you could not hope to defeat at that point and that sort of thing. So I just like run through the woods, right? Trying to do a straight shot, turn on the classical music station on my little Pip-Boy radio. And for a while there's something weirdly picturesque or something about this, of like me and my dog running through the woods while Beethoven plays. And I just eventually you have to go over a river. There's like an old like rail line or something. Mm-hmm. So I go over there. I get to Oberlin Station, which turns out to be like this cinder block building. And like notably, like I'm not like skipping over things. I don't run into anything while I'm doing this.
Yeah, I do want to say just about kind of overland traversal. I do less, much like the other games. I do less overland, and I kind of follow the roads generally. Mm-hmm. But what I do think that this game like hits the wasteland walking experience in a way that other games don't. And honestly, I think it has to do with graphical fidelity.
Yeah.
Not in the sense that like trees are better rendered, but because the kind of terrain generation and the terrain design and the locations of trees. Like, density is much higher here than it has been in any of the other games. It feels like a real world in that when you walk through the woods, it feels like the woods.
Yes, right.
And there are no other games in the Fallout game. I mean, obviously they're set kind of in a more blasted wasteland in Fallout 3, and then a more it's the desert, so it's a different kind of vibe, right? But and so I think part of the thing of selling like the nature part of it is that it kind of feels like nature. Weirdly enough, I think a lot about the screen where the I think it's where the spaceship is crashed in Fallout 2. Mm-hmm. And that screen has a lot of trees on it, which is very rare in that game to have a screen with a whole lot of trees on it, and that really feels like nature too. Mm-hmm. And so there's something going on there, which is like, I think, density for me of like, hey, like you're in a creek bed, and the creek bed is like appropriately like shaped, right? It's got like the low thing in the bottom. It's got like a little half bank and then the full bank, and there's trees on the full bank and there's bushes on the half bank, and it's like, oh yeah, this is like a real place. This is designed and feels like a real place. And I think that's like a real injection into Fallout for me, of like walking through the world here feels like walking through a real world. Not that it looks that way, but that the density and feeling of it has a similar thing.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. I think that really changes the whole tone of the game.
Yeah, it really does, actually. Like, having gone hiking in this area in real life, like, that was part of why running through the woods with my dog listening to classical music had kind of an interesting vibe to it, right? It was like, this does feel kind of like I went up to, like, Lexington Concord and, like, went for a hike. Like,
right.
And especially, as I said in the previous episode, like, sort of the way that you're kind of like going up and down hills, and you'll like see a thing, and then you'll go down and you'll go up and you'll see it again as it's closer, and just terrain variation and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the other thing, I guess, too, is that I much like the other games, I don't really listen to the radio. And Einon Zur has done the soundtrack, I think, for all of them, right?
I mean,
not all the way back, but the Bethesda ones. Let me check. I don't know if he did Fallout New Vegas. Let me see. New Vegas. Yeah, he did do New Vegas. So he's done all the Bethesda Fallouts, maybe, and 76 as well. I don't think the soundtrack, because I've actually sat and listened to the soundtracks of these, I don't think the soundtrack for Fallout 3 is very good. I don't like it, especially compared to the soundtracks for Fallout 1 and 2, which is by, one second, I want to get the name right. I think Ben something? Mark Morgan. That it's immaculate. One of the best game soundtracks ever produced, just period. I mean, it truly is wonderful. So I don't think Fallout 3 is very good. I don't really enjoy listening to the sounds and tones. Fallout New Vegas, I can't even tell you what's on it. Like, it just doesn't stick out in my head.
They reuse a lot of Morgan songs, actually.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Because, of course, kind of the riff on the desert stuff. But I got to give it Einon Zur in this one. The world soundtrack, the ambient soundtrack in Fallout 4 is truly astonishing. It is really good.
Yeah.
And I get to listen to about a full minute and a half of it every time I have to load an area. So I really get to focus in.
Yeah.
And I'm really impressed with it. I think it's really good.
Yeah, I actually ended up turning off the radio precisely because it gets very repetitive. There just aren't that many songs. And the ambient soundtrack was just, I was like, oh, this is actually good. Like, I like this. So,
yeah.
So I get to Oberlin Station. It's like a little cinder block building, a fence, some like tomato plants, and 2 people who live there. And they're just people. They're just called settlers. And I got to talk to them, and I guess I'm there on behalf of the Minutemen that they know about. And they're like, hey, we got this problem with some raiders living over in like this Corvega plant, which is like a type of car in this setting.
Mark Morgan was in the band Starship, which is a continuation of Jefferson Starship.
Cool. Neat.
He was a keyboard player. That's what he was doing before he made Fallout.
I think that's neat. Great.
What? Oh my god! What the fuck? Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not.
Oh, he's playing the final countdown. Isn't that them?
No.
Oh, is that not Starship?
That's not Starship.
Oh, we built the city. We built the city. Sorry.
Yes.
Flip those two around.
The final countdown was Europe, I think, was that band's name.
Right. It's those single words.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. That really got me. Oh my god. The lore.
Uh-huh. Extended Fallout lore.
I'm a Gen Zer, and now I refer to all history as lore.
I'm
sorry. So we're going to the Corvega plant because these people. You go to the settlement, and they're like, "Hey, these raiders are kicking our little butts." Go to the Corvega plant, which is like a car. It's like a car manufactory.
Yeah. And I go there, and I spend a million hours trying to figure out how the hell I'm supposed to get into this thing because I approach it from kind of a weird angle. And I spend a long time doing stuff I apparently don't need to do because there's like all these like towers and sort of like coolant like things around at the top of the thing. I'm supposed to go inside and clear it out, but instead I'm like out here like walking around the top, shooting people, getting shot at. The only sort of like neat thing about this is that eventually I get to like the highest point of all of this construction, and I can like turn around and I like look down and I can see Boston like in the distance. So very, again, like taking some notes from New Vegas here, where they get you in a position where you can like see the thing where you're eventually going to go, right? Kind of the urban or metro center or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks neat. It's like, oh yeah, that draw distance, next gen, great. Then I go down and I go through the Corvega plant, and then I clear it, and then I leave. I mean, I want to hear what you did. I have some stuff to say about like what's going on with raiders here in general, but we can talk about that together.
Well, this is the thing I was alluding to before about like how my tactics really have had to change, because historically what I've been able to do is just kind of charge in and hit people with whatever. Mm-hmm. Melee weapons are a little bit different in this game in that there are fast, medium, and slow weapons, and I guess that's always implicitly been the case. There have been faster and slower weapons, but they are very different now, and slow means slow. So I've had to kind of move out of that because they're not fast enough to like kill enemies before they kill me. I mean, this was really where I started feeling like, oh, this is entirely balanced for gunplay, and doing anything else is like a fun challenge run. Mm-hmm. Which does make for some interesting stuff. I mean, I had a truly great, it's playing right now in the video, because I'm going to edit it in here, but I had a truly great encounter where, because if you approach like from the way that Sanctuary is, you come from you go through a place where a bunch of feral ghouls are. Did you go through that part?
Is it
you fight like 15 ghouls? Is
it the little like, it's like a little camp or something, and there's like a robot running around?
Nope,
I did not see this at all.
It's right outside the plant.
Oh, no. I approached from the south, so.
Oh, gotcha. Because you went around. I see.
Right.
So I go through it, and there's like, you hear like a, and then feral ghouls start showing up, and they hit like a truck in a way that they have not hit before. They really take out a chunk of health, and I have 9 endurance, got a lot of health. Mm-hmm. And so they just kill me straight up. And there's like some actually cool animations if you're in third person mode. They like jump on your throat and bite it out. Like a zombie film. It's pretty neat. So anyway, that happens like one time, and I'm like, all right, I just beefed it. And like it happens a second time, and I was like, oh, this is hard. Like this is harder than it should be. I thought it would be. Not that it should be that harder than I thought it would be. And so then I go in and I like bing bang boom. I think I'm using a tire iron at this point, and like kill a couple ghouls, and then they all start chasing me, and I'm like running away. And then there's a sprint button too, right? And so they like start hitting me as I'm running away. So I got to sprint, and I'm sprinting, and they're sprinting behind me. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, oh my god, this is like, it's like 28 days later over here, right? Like this is the exact like emotion that I'm experiencing. Not a common emotion game, so I'm like a little bit panicked. I'm like, I don't want to die again. I really want to do this. I like cut through a garage. I'm like going around these what do you call it? Like cars inside the garage, and then the garage like goes up to a rooftop. It's like a multi-level parking structure. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna run up there. They're gonna chase me in, and I'll jump off the roof, and then I'll like run to the station that I'm going to, or the factory that I'm going to. They follow me in, and then I realize, if I jump off the roof, they'll just see me again. So maybe I can hang out here until they de-aggro. I go to the edge of the roof, I jump off that roof onto an awning of another roof, and then I'm just standing there looking at them milling around. And I was like, oh shit, it's like a zombie movie. It's exactly how zombies work.
Yes.
And so it was like a really cool emergent gameplay moment that would never appear in any other Fallout game.
Mm-hmm.
Like in any of the other 3D Fallout games, I would have resolved this conflict immediately. But they have, maybe on purpose, maybe not, I don't know. But the numbers of zombies have been tuned here to make them a problem, as opposed to just make them like yet another enemy to fight. And I think that, just based on this couple hours of gameplay that we did, to me, that ties in with the change in enemy AI for the development of enemy AI for raiders and things like that. Is like, I think someone in combat design at Bethesda really thought about, okay, well, they don't just hit you, right? Like they have to do stuff. And like, what's the dangerous part? The dangerous part of raiders is that they have tactics, and they're a group of people, and they have guns. Right. The dangerous part of animals is they can be anywhere, and they can pop out of the bushes and then chomp on your leg, right? What's the dangerous part of ghouls, aka zombies, right? The dangerous part is that there's too many. And then they did it. They did the thing. And I thought it was really cool. I ended up like going down and throwing a Molotov cocktail at them, and then luring them through the Molotov cocktail, and then like killing the other couple that I needed to. So it was fun. It was like a cool thing to do. But then went into the plant, and when I was talking about earlier, this is when I had to like kind of use some like walls and structures to kind of like lure people around. And it's really not notable, other than I did find it pretty difficult as a melee character. It took a couple runs to like figure out exactly how I was supposed to approach the thing. The only real notable thing to me is the end, when you kind of fight the final boss of the dungeon, for lack of a better term. I don't know. I mean, what do you have to say about this area? You said you had some raider stuff to talk about. We could talk about it here.
Well, so big picture, when I first walked into Concord, by the way, it's another Massachusetts New Englandism that falls out of the voice acting here. It's Concord, not Concord.
Concord.
Yeah.
Concord, Massachusetts.
Anyhow, when I first walked into Concord and I saw it popped up in the, the UI or whatever, it was like Raider. And I was like, okay, we're back to this. Because one of the big differences between like Fallout 3 and New Vegas was that Fallout 3 had the class of just raiders that we, in those episodes, you can go back and listen to them. We were just like these NPCs are just like cultureless goblins that boil up from the earth for you to fight and kill. And New Vegas, coming out of the older Fallout 1 and 2 design lineage, of course still has like raiders as sort of like a class of types of people that exist in the world, but you never run into really just like someone who is just a raider, right? They're usually a part of like a particular gang, like a jackal or a viper or what have you. And these groups tend to have like places where they live and where they're like, bases of operations and like territories where they operate. Fallout 3 is just literally like, they're just all raiders. Just raiders everywhere, like no differentiation in or among them. They just are. What is interesting here in Fallout 4 is that they've tried to split the difference. Where everyone's a raider. But some of the raiders have names. In this case, we have this boss character named Jared. There was also a named raider back in Concord because you could get a key from his body that I used to open some chest in this factory or something, and I got some cool loot. And they have sort of so outside of this mission, one of the things that I've been doing, and I don't really have a lot of footage of this because I know this is my first time playing this game and I want to have something like the accurate sort of normal play experience. But the challenge here is that the normal play experience for one of these games is, you bebop around, you find the things that are interesting, and you do them in whatever order. So, I'm trying to be careful. I'm not like going into like settlements or locations, but I have been sort of like walking around trying to get a vibe for like the landscape and stuff. And I found a couple of other like little raider encampments that didn't seem to be huge or quest related. And in those places, I have found like there's usually like one or two named raiders who are like the boss characters. And then you can find like terminals where the raiders are actually like keeping records of things that they're doing. And there are like different, they're not like sort of gangs, but it's like so one of the places that I found was like an old food ration, like a government food ration place sort of up between Sanctuary and here. And there were a bunch of raiders camped out there, and I ended up reading one of their terminals, and they talk about the people, like they mentioned basically there's another gang of raiders over in this location and also in this Corvega plant, and they aren't like enemies, but they also aren't friends, and they end up one of the raider who's in charge of this like ration depot or whatever. Her sister got kidnapped by the raiders who are in a brewery that's very close to this Corvega plant, and the people in the brewery are like using the captured sister to like ransom food out of this other raider gang. So, a lesson has been learned here, or like they're trying to do something with these raiders that do kind of situate them in the world as people, rather than just being like horrifying, like subjectivity-less goblins who exist for you to mow them down. Like they still exist for you to mow them down, but they have like a personality and a position in the world in a way that I think is actually, like cool and an improvement in terms of how this thing is being written. Anyway, I don't know anything about this Jared dude, because what I do is I hack a terminal that turns on a protectron that is in this room, and the protectron turns around and like kills everyone in the room, and then if I don't leave the room, also kills me. So that's how I clear this dungeon.
Wow. So you didn't even go up to his like little terminal zone, or you did?
I couldn't get up there. The protectron would kill me before I got there.
Oh, I see. So you have to go. He's on like a little like basically like the foreman's platform, like the little manager's platform. It's a very 19th century factory, and so you go up there. You have to hit a button that extends a bridge to get over there. And you know what's really hard as a melee character? It's getting up to the little extendo bridge before the auto turrets murder you.
Yeah.
And the auto turrets, the thing that turns them off is in the office. Which is great dungeon design, in terms of like if you're trying to create some sort of murder hole, works great. But for gameplay design, for me, it was a little bit hard. So I ended up having to like pick up a gun and like destroy some of those, the turrets on my way there. So it was a little bit of a bummer. But I made my way up there, did it. And yeah, you can learn about Jared. Jared used to be part of the group that he's actually got a pretty cool little story. I think he was a part of the group that Marcus Garvey was a part of. Wait, Marcus Garvey?
Not Marcus Garvey, not the founder of the Pan-Africanist movement, no.
Yeah, so this is we got to talk about this.
We do,
Preston
actually,
Garvey,
yeah.
Marcus Garvey, what's going on?
Yeah.
What is that?
That feels intentional, but...
It does feel intentional.
To what intent?
I don't know. Like, are we trying to, like, enable the specter of Garveyism?
Right.
I don't know.
And, like, how is that getting mixed up with the Minutemen?
That's what I'm saying. Right? I don't know. But there's something, like, it's the cadence. It's not just Garvey, although it's a pretty unique last name. But it's, like... Marcus Garvey, like, has the same rhythm. Marcus Garvey, Preston Garvey. Right? Like, it's not Dirk Garvey, which would be a different, you know what I mean? It's a different tonality to it. So I don't know. There's something up with that I find interesting. Preston Garvey. It seems like he was part of Preston Garvey's group, maybe, or something like that, because Jared used to be in a group of people with Mama Murphy. And saw her use the site. What he was doing is trying to get the site for himself. And he couldn't do that, right?
Yeah, I found not this terminal, but I think I found some other terminal. Maybe it's the other guy that you kill in Concord and get his little thing. But something is mentioned in a terminal that I did read about like her having the site and like this guy like wanting more drugs because he's like taking lots of drugs, I think, to like try to induce a psychic vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, and he also wants.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, it's the other guy because that guy also he wants Preston Garvey's hat. He wants to kill Preston Garvey and take his hat.
I didn't notice that part. I didn't see that part. That's very funny.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Anyway, so he wants to do that, but he can't manage it, and so he starts bringing in experimental subjects. Yeah, to feed them chems to see if he can induce the sight in someone. It doesn't work, but it's a fun little thing. I think that's very Fallout.
Right.
Like a guy who's trying to do empiricism to figure out if you can give people psychic powers.
Right.
That's very Fallout to me. Yeah, so anyway, kill that guy. Uh-huh. Lo and behold, this is the payoff for all of this is just kill that guy. Who cares?
Uh-huh.
And you go back and you say, I killed that guy. And they say, great, I guess we're joining the Minutemen with you now.
Right. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not even part of the Minutemen.
I said, no, don't worry about it. We're going to go to the Minutemen because you go back to Preston Garvey. And he says, you're the general of the Minutemen now.
I don't know if he did say that to me.
Does he not? Did you not join the Minutemen?
I don't know if I'm joined.
You would know because he starts calling you general. And he becomes available as a companion.
Oh, yeah. I think I maybe like dialogued myself out of this, maybe. Because he doesn't refer to me as general.
What does he do to you? Like, what happened? You went back and talked to him again, right?
Well, I talked to him and I like completed the mission. I don't know. I also kind of like maybe pissed off everyone in Sanctuary. We can talk about this with this mission, right?
Okay.
I had a lot of problems. I had a lot of problems with it.
Just to close that up, at the end of the mission, he said, hey, do you want to join the Minutemen? And I said, sure, that sounds like a good idea. I would love to go do a bunch of like little doodly quests all around the map and become the Spectre of the Minutemen. And he said, well, the Minutemen are all gone and I'm the last one, so I guess you're general now. You're our leader. And I said, are you sure? And he said, yeah, you're the leader now. You're the leader of the Minutemen. You were born 15 minutes ago. You're the leader.
Oh my God.
And I said, are you sure? He said, yeah, I'm good at fighting, but I'm not good at being a general. And here's the thing, I'm the last one, so I can call anyone the general I want. You're the general now. And I said, all right, fine.
I love being the last surviving like member of the administration of a faction, so I can shove off all administrative and leadership duties onto a person I just met.
Yes, basically, that's what occurs. And so he basically says, all right, well, we got to get some more settlements involved, blah, 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 and kind of starts you on the Minutemen quest line. So,
oh, yeah, no, he didn't give me any of these.
Okay. Well, you might want to talk to him again.
Okay. Yeah, no, I got one quest, which was Sanctuary, which was kind of like I think like a tutorial to the settlement stuff. And I used the term tutorial very loosely because it doesn't really tell you anything. It's just like, hey, here's some stuff you can do.
Yeah, it's pretty notable because it just doesn't tell you jack shit about it.
Mm-hmm. Like you talk, it's what's his name? Sturgis is the guy that you're supposed to talk to.
Yeah, and he says you should use the Sanctuary editing button to do stuff. Good luck.
Yep. He's like, we need beds.
Yep.
Like we need at least 5 beds, and people here want to sleep on beds, and they want to have a roof over their heads. And I'll tell you right now, they may want a roof over their heads, but they don't really care. They will sleep in their 5 beds that I put in the middle of the street.
So that's kind of how you're treating the whole deal here, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I might have, like I said, this might have had consequences in that you eventually have to like do some like they also need defense, right? Well, they need some beds, they need some water pumps, which is like fine. Okay, I'll pull the water pump out of the menu and I put it wherever. But then they also need defense. And there are 2 ways of doing this at this point. One is fairly cheap, and it's like build a basically like a little like cover station, right, where someone with a gun can camp out if anyone comes in. And the other one is to build a little like turret that's not connected to like any sort of power grid or whatever, because I can see in the build menu that we have all this stuff waiting for us in the future.
Yep.
The cheap way is to build the little the platforms. So I do this, but then you need to assign people to them. Because I guess I'm in charge of all these people now. Like, they're just little babies who won't defend themselves unless Eleanor from the vault will tell them what to do. It won't let me assign anyone to anything. It keeps saying that, like, that action is not available or something, or like that character cannot be assigned. I can't remember what the error message is, but it's really weird. And I think it might be either it's just like some glitch that's happening, or it's because they are pissed off at me for putting all of their beds in the middle of the street. But this puts me in a position where, like, well, I guess I'm just going to build these turrets. But the turrets need like some rarer materials, right? The little pinch point things, that's just, you know, wood and some steel or whatever you need to build. The turrets have inner workings, and I am not a person who picks up a lot of junk in Fallout games, and it turns out that in this game, you should be picking up a lot of junk so you can build all this crap. So I need to say this up front, I don't like this type of gameplay. Like, this whole, like, settlement building, maintaining thing, the survival style gameplay, I do not like this. I very much dislike it. At some point in the past, maybe on Game Study Buddies, I was talking about playing No Man's Sky, which I had a pretty okay time with, right? I thought it had like cool vibes and there was like some cool stuff going on there. And I was like, oh, I'm on this planet, and I like built my little shelter so I don't die in like whatever these weather conditions are. And then once I did that thing, and once I did that, right? Once I did the first thing and I was like, oh, the rest of the game is just this, iterated on itself forever. I was like, I'm done. I don't care about this. Like, this is not interesting to me. And I stopped playing No Man's Sky. I haven't touched it in like 2 years.
Wow.
So, yeah,
oh,
like
good
that.
Luck. Good luck, buddy.
I know, right? I know that's what I'm set up for here. So the reason I don't like this is because this is not why I play games. It feels like busy work. All of it just feels like busy work. Like, this is all fake. Like, why do I have to go out and like find the specific item to like build another specific item to sit next to this NPC so they can harvest corn? Like, who gives a shit? And so I set out looking for the pieces that I need to build these turrets, thinking to myself, God, I hate this kind of thing. I don't know how this is going to go for me. This feels so much like work. Lo and behold, this is the point where I like wander into Cambridge by accident while looking for like basically robot parts to build these turrets. Like, not to give too much away, but I literally work in Cambridge. So I'm like, fuck this. Like, no. And I turn around and I leave, and I like go back to the Corvega plant and kill some turrets there to get some pieces. But like the specific move of like, I don't like this style of gameplay, it feels too much like work, to like, oh, by the way, here you are at like your bus stop.
Oof.
Yep.
Oof. No, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it is this interesting kind of thing, right? Where I have the same general feeling, right? Like, it's busy work. I don't play these kinds of games generally. I mean, I guess I play Minecraft, you know, like once a year I get that little itch, play Minecraft for 2 days. Because it's fun to do. But I generally don't like any of the games, you know, like the crafting games or crafting system games where it's like, hey, here's a little world. You just go and do a bunch of little tasks and you like build it up. Although they are extremely popular, right?
Oh, yeah. Like, they are popular. Yeah, I'm not denying that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not really into it in a general sense. For some reason, it works for me in Fallout. And I think part of the reason for that is what I know is coming. Here at the beginning is not very interesting. Although, I like to tidy. Like, it feels good to tidy. I'm happy to walk around Sanctuary. Yeah. By the way, I like the idea of tidying. I like the idea of you click on the thing and you turn it into materials and it goes away.
That made me think of Shira Chess, that chapter in Ready Player 2 about the hidden object games and how they replicate the experience of cleaning your house.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was actually thinking about, weirdly enough, you ever see the movie Envy?
No.
Ben Stiller and Jack Black, maybe?
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. It's like a dark comedy.
Yeah, it's a comedy about people who invent a spray that's called like Poo Gone, and it's a spray can, like a hairspray can, and if you have poop, like dog poop, you spray it and it just disappears like magically. And it's about like what happens to these people now that they become like rich and famous off of this thing, and then you eventually find out that like the poop goes somewhere. It doesn't just disappear, right?
Yeah.
That's like the thing. But to me, it's like that. It's like, it's gone. It's just got like all the trash is gone. Wow. So I enjoyed that part of it, although the controls on PC are the hottest garbage on the planet. You hit the R button and then you hit enter.
Ooh.
Two buttons have never been further apart.
Yeah, that's... Ooh.
And I'm moving with the one hand, right? I'm moving with like WASD, right? So
yes.
it's hard to like manage the thing. And I need to have a hand on the mouse to look around. So I don't know who has a third arm sticking out of their chest that they designed this around.
Their playtester was actually a Mr. Handy.
Yeah, it has to be, right? So it's not great from that perspective. I need to remap some keys or something. It's fixable, but I found it a little bit annoying. But I like that part, and for the most part, you can get the things that you need for a lot of the stuff from doing that. But having played the game before, I know that you gotta like just pick random shit up constantly. But I do like where the system goes, which is like you can recruit a bunch of people and they'll come and they hang out and they do stuff, and you can like assign them to different things. And then like raiders attack, and you can like defend your place with all the stuff you did. I like that part. I think that's fun to do. So. I like a little point defense. I like the original Fortnite design, like the thing that they sold originally. That seems cool to me. So anyway, I think I like where it goes, but yeah, here at the beginning, it's not very interesting. And if you don't already have the stuff, it's like, well, I guess I gotta go find like this thing, and then like sometimes you have to do the thing of like Googling. Where does military grade hardware come from, right? And you gotta go because it's not in like whatever it's not going to be in a random house. You gotta go somewhere that has it. So I think that part's not particularly fun, but yeah, there's a lot of this waiting for us. I don't think the interface is particularly good, but I did have a good time putting it together. Anything else to talk about in this episode?
Well, one other thing that I noticed when I was doing my bebopping around, right, trying to recreate sort of the wandering experience, I ran into some traveling merchants. And this is where, weirdly enough, like the conversation system that's been really pared down, like rubber bands around to being like really cool or like potentially really cool, because these are characters that you're not having long drawn out conversations with. And the stripped down options that you have feel like more attuned to these interactions. It's like you meet someone on the road and you kind of just have you walk up to them and you start talking and you just have like some very quick back and forth. And the merchants, unlike what was going on in like Fallout 3, these traveling merchants have like particular characters and histories to them. Like one of them, there's like a guy who, like when you meet him, he's sort of like a little more fun in games and you can like make a joke with him. And there's another guy who just like won't talk to you because he's out of stuff. But in both of these cases, also, the guy that I was talking with who like made a little bit of joke, like sort of talked to me about his trade route and like where he was from and like what he mainly did. And then the other guy who was out of stuff, he was like, sorry, I don't have anything to sell. I'm actually heading back to Vault 88 to restock. And then he marked Vault 88 on my map for me. Which feels a lot more like Fallout 1 and 2 in that you could just kind of like, as you were walking around the world map in those, you could meet people and just kind of learn things. And this addresses a point that I made about Fallout 3, which was that it felt like they made this big, huge open world and none of the parts of it talked to each other. Like you never met a person in one place who like really had a history or like a lot of thoughts about another place. And here we have something more like, it's an old Fallout standby, right? But we have these trade routes and sort of these people who are moving and who have like this guy telling me, hey, there's a Vault 88. It's where I get a lot of my stuff. I'll mark it on my map for you. Right. This is a world that feels more integrated, that has things moving around and pieces sort of bouncing off each other and more so than Fallout 3 did.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there's a little bit more connectivity here, and I'm curious to see where it goes. Thinking about it in those terms, I think that's it. Next episode, we're going to go to Diamond City and probably do a couple side quests. I haven't quite figured out which ones yet, but probably you've got one called Troubled Waters.
No,
that's what you told me.
Is it?
Yep.
Maybe. I know I have one called like Pull the Plug.
Maybe you don't have Troubled Water. Maybe you got Pull the Plug. Okay, I don't know. We're gonna do some quests. We're gonna go to Diamond City and do some quests.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out. This is a weird game in that you kind of got a golden path for a minute before it kind of fallouts out a little bit. So we got to keep going down the golden path. We're going to Diamond City, which is quite fun and interesting, and then we will go from there.
All right. Until next time, folks. Well, actually.
Nope, we got a bunch of stuff to do. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Different show. You can go to patreon.com/rangetouch in order to support the show. If you give us $3 a month, you can listen to this as a podcast rather than just watching it on YouTube, if that's something you want to do. We have a bunch of other shows you can check out, like Just King Things, where we read through the works of Stephen King in publication order. Game Study Buddies, where we talk about game studies books and make them a little bit more live for people who don't have academic degrees. Or if you do have academic degrees, just a little read along, or if you're in neither of those camps, just a fun show to listen to learn about game studies. We got some other stuff like Mages and Murder Dads. We got a show about Homestuck. Homestuck Made This World. You can check all that out at rangetouch.com. There's a link in the description below this. Michael, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on twitter.com @WarrenIsDead.
And now we're leaving. Take us on out, Michael.
Okay. Well, we used to say that war never changes, but Fallout sure does. And now we're just saying, like, Fallout changed. Come on, folks.
Fallout's different now. Can you do it in the Mad Hatter voice?
Fallout's different now.
Everything changed when the bombs fell, except for war. Playing our way through the wasteland. Won't you come along? Everybody fall out. Fall out. Oh.
That's it. That's the new outro.
War never changes. Hold on, shit. No, I mean, I'll keep my recording going. I want to see how this works. See if I can get the transcript. Here we go. War never changes. In the year 1945, my great-great-grandfather, serving in the army, wondered when he'd get to go home to see his wife and son he'd never seen. He got his wish when the U.S. ended World War II by dropping atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Awful. Absolutely awful.